When the Millionaire's Mandarin failed, the black janitor shocked everyone with fluent Chinese. It was the kind of day where the clouds hung low and the air buzzed with a strange energy. The elite of the city gathered in the grand hall, a glittering showcase of wealth and arrogance. At the center, Marcus Chen, a millionaire businessman known for his ruthless deals, stood confidently at the podium. He cleared his throat, a prelude to something monumental. Today, he was to unveil his latest venture into the Asian market, adjusting his tie with shaky hands, nerves creeping in. He studied his Mandarin tirelessly, the textbooks littered with notes, his pronunciation a meticulous labor of love, but as he began, his words tumbled like an avalanche. His once polished Mandarin slipped into a jumbled mess, a cacophony of mispronounced syllables that left the audience exchanging uncomfortable glances. Gasps echoed off the high ceilings, disbelief rippling through the crowd. He had been preparing for this moment for months, and yet here he was, drowning in a sea of embarrassment, sweat trickling down his brow. Then, in the back, a soft rustle caught everyone's attention. The janitor, an unassuming man named David, stood frozen with a mop in hand. And then, to everyone's shock, he began to speak. His voice was steady, warm, and unmistakably fluent. Each word flowed like silk from his lips, capturing the audience like a spell. The hall fell silent, mouths agape. Who was this man? Where had he learned such a language? David's eyes glinted with a mix of determination and a strange, long-buried pride. He stepped forward, a man transformed from the shadows into the spotlight. The whispers filled the room, a murmur of shock and curiosity. Could it be true? The janitor, with his simple clothes and an everyday mop, had outshined a millionaire? As Marcus's face turned crimson with disbelief, the tension in the air grew thick with questions. What was David hiding? Why did he wait until this moment to reveal his ability? The crowd leaned in, hungry for answers, the drama unfolding like a gripping film. Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. David's voice cut through the murmurs. I've been waiting for this moment for a long time. With that, the crowd held its breath, anticipation crackling like electricity. What secrets lay beneath the surface of a janitor's life? Every eye was fixated on him, and suddenly Marcus wasn't the only one in the spotlight. The tension hung heavy in the air, a dramatic pause that left everyone wondering just how deep David's story went. Why had he kept this hidden? What other talents lay beneath that humble exterior? As whispers turned to exclamations, the air thick with unasked questions, the crowd shifted uncomfortably, sensing they were about to witness something extraordinary unfold. David took another step forward, the mop clattering to the floor behind him. The silence was deafening as anticipation curled in the air, a living entity itself. All my life, I've been told who I am, David continued, unfazed by the many eyes locked onto him. Scrubbing floors, cleaning up after the likes of you, he gestured toward Marcus, whose shame was palpable. But today, I stand before you not as a janitor, but as someone who has something to say. People shifted in their seats, whispers erupting like firecrackers. A woman near the front gasped. What is he going to say? Marcus clenched his jaw, fury and embarrassment waging war on his expression. The millionaire had faced numerous challenges, but right now, this was uncharted territory. He leaned against the podium, desperate to regain control. You don't belong up here, David. Oh? Is that so? David shot back, his voice unwavering. He turned to the audience, their expressions a mosaic of shock and intrigue. You think you know everyone's story because of their appearance, he said, his words sharp as blades. You see a mop, but I see a bridge to opportunities. I can't let my skills go unnoticed because of a dusty name tag. I've spent years building my voice in other languages, in other lives. The audience gasped again, the weight of his revelation crashing in waves. This wasn't just a performance, it was a confession. David's journey was complicated, layered with hidden struggles and unfulfilled dreams. The crowd leaned in closer, hungry for more. You think I'm just here to clean? I studied abroad. I lived in China. I learned their culture, their language. David's eyes sparkled with passion. But I returned to support family. I wear this uniform to serve, but I carry a legacy. There was an edge to his conviction that pulled the crowd into his orbit. Marcus, simmering with indignation, broke the silence again. So what? This isn't your place. This is my company. David's smile was the kind that masked an inner hurricane. Exactly. It is your company. But for how long? The room shifted, voices buzzing nervously. The question hung over everyone like a shadow cast by an unseen giant. For how long could his empire rest comfortably on the 1,000 little lives it had smothered? David suddenly turned serious, his gaze darting around the room. I want to just stand by while you fail to appreciate what we all might bring to the table. There was a collective gasp, some murmured agreements, others shifting uncomfortably. Marcus's face was a storm, battling between rage and unease. He opened his mouth to respond, but the words failed him. With a sudden resolve, David declared, I propose a challenge. Let me run your marketing pitch. Let me show you how someone with real understanding can connect with the market you're so desperate to conquer. The crowd held its breath, electrified by the audacity of his demand. The tension was palpable, as if the very air was vibrating with potential. It's time to see what happens when the tables turn, David concluded, his tone layered with meaning, lifting the weight of fear off his shoulders. The hall erupted into cacophonous murmurs, people erupting into speculation, glancing between David and Marcus like they were watching a live fight. Would Marcus accept David's challenge and risk everything for the sake of pride? In an instant, all eyes turned back to Marcus, his face a canvas of conflicted emotions. He began, but the crowd's anticipation swallowed the words. Would Marcus rise to confront the challenge, or would he walk away from the possibility of a life-changing leap? The stakes had never been higher, hanging on the edge of Marcus's response. It was about to get explosive. The moment crackled with tension, 1,000 breaths held in unison. Marcus stood frozen, as if the ground beneath him had turned to quicksand. He could feel the weight of the crowd's gaze, split between his expectation and David's fearless demand. Do you have the guts, Marcus? David's voice sliced through the murmur, each word coated with resolve. A bead of sweat slid down Marcus's temple, his mind racing. He was the king of the conference hall, the undisputed authority. But here, in this moment, David was dismantling everything he believed about the boundaries of their worlds. The humiliation of the janitor challenging him, how was that even possible? Come on, Marcus. Someone shouted from the back, emboldened by the tension. Show him what you've got. The crowd erupted in a mix of cheers and murmurs, a collective buzzing that swirled around like a restless storm. Marcus's heart thudded, each beat a hammer driving him deeper into uncertainty. How dare they fuel this insurrection? Fine. I'll give you your shot, he finally spat out, his voice gravelly, barely hiding the storm brewing inside. But don't think you can just waltz in and take my place. David's smile widened, confidence radiating from him like a beacon. I wouldn't dream of it. But maybe I'll show you just how it's done. The crowd erupted, a mixture of gasps, surprised laughter, and exhilaration. David's proposal had sparked something incredible, a wildfire of excitement. The spectators were no longer observers, they had become the audience to an extraordinary showdown. Tomorrow, David said, his voice ringing clear, let us meet here, the same time. I'll present my ideas, and we'll see where the chips fall. Marcus, caught in a whirlwind of emotions, felt a creeping sense of dread. He was in unfamiliar territory, walking a tightrope stretched over a chasm of vulnerability. But there was something electrifying about being cornered, a surge of adrenaline kicking him into gear. "Let us do it," he managed to say, the words tasting bitter on his tongue. As the audience erupted into applause, Marcus felt as if he stood on the edge of a great chasm. The cheers felt less like praise and more like a judgment, a weight pressing down on him. Could he really hold on to his power when his self-image was so entwined with superiority? Would they sideshow David's brilliance over his own? David stepped off the podium, his demeanor transformed. A janitor no, a visionary shaking hands, receiving nods of respect. Marcus's world felt like it was crumbling. He had to prepare. He had to do everything to maintain his empire in the face of this unexpected hurricane. As David moved through the crowd, people reached out to congratulate him, their faces lit with admiration. Meanwhile, Marcus stood still, his breath coming in quick bursts, panic clawing at his insides. Tomorrow, he muttered to himself, the word like a stone in his throat. He had to outsmart David, to show him that the empire wasn't just about ideas, but execution. But as he watched David laughing and engaging, vibrant and alive, Marcus couldn't shake a lingering doubt. Was his confidence built on shaky ground? The reality of the competition loomed large, casting a shadow that enveloped him. Tomorrow was going to change everything, he could feel it in his bones. As the crowd began to disperse, David caught his eye from across the hall, a spark of challenge igniting a new level of determination in Marcus. The stakes had been raised, and the battle lines drawn. As Marcus strode toward the exit, the pressure of his escalation weighed heavily upon him. The question lingered in his mind like a specter: was he ready to face the storm to defend his kingdom, or would he let David redefine what it meant to belong? And as he left the hall, something felt unsettlingly clear. Failure whispered through the fabric of his certainty, hinting at shattering truths yet to be revealed. At dusk the following day, the conference hall hummed with anticipation. Backstage, Marcus paced, his chest tight with anxiety. The glow of the lights seemed to amplify the chaos in his mind. He had studied every possible angle, every move David might make. He was the king, and today he had to remind everyone why. The crowd gathered. A wave of faces, eager and expectant. Marcus could almost hear their whispers, their doubts about his capability growing louder with each heartbeat. He wiped his clammy hands on his suit, recalling the way David had grinned, so unfazed, so determined. That smile unnerved him. "Ladies and gentlemen," the host called, "thank you for joining us for today's showdown. In one corner, we have the CEO, Marcus Doyle." Applause echoed around the room, though it felt hollow to Marcus. And in the other corner, the host continued, the janitor turned visionary, David Chen. Cheers erupted, electric and powerful. Marcus felt like a matador facing a bull, only the bull had become a lightning storm. Marcus stepped onto the stage, cultivating a facade of confidence. The spotlight bathed him in harsh light. His voice boomed. "Thank you all for coming. Today is about revolutionizing our idea of success. But witnessing this transformation requires expertise, something you can only find in experience." He glanced at David, who stood with a calm demeanor, holding a stack of papers with purpose. Marcus's discomfort twisted into irritation. Did David even understand what was at stake? Did he have any notion of the empire he was trying to tear down? David stood when it was his turn, a comfortable smile gracing his lips. "Success isn't just about experience," he began, each word measured, "but about vision and the courage to challenge the old ways." He paused, letting the gravity of his idea sink in. The crowd leaned forward, captivated. Marcus clenched his jaw. Those sentiments were dangerously familiar, but David's passion struck a different chord. "What if I told you that the mind's greatest resource could come from outside the walls of expectation?" The audience murmured, intrigued. Tension shook through Marcus. He felt the foundation of his argument slip away. David revealed a projector, illuminating the screen behind him. Images flashed, innovative designs, progressive ideas, stories of unrecognized talents thriving in unexpected roles. It was like watching a stampede. Once it started, it couldn't be contained. Marcus fumbled with his thoughts. How could he dismantle this? You might see potential in visions, he interrupted, his voice faltering slightly. But these ideas need reality to thrive. They need structure. A whisper ricocheted from the crowd, a fissure of uncertainty widening like a crack in a dam. David flashed a knowing glance at Marcus, amusement dancing in his eyes. And that structure can be built with fresh perspective, Marcus. You've built yours on barriers. I propose we knock them down. The audience erupted. Clapping and cheers erupted in waves, drowning out Marcus's rebuttal. Every heartbeat felt like a countdown as his words slipped from his grasp. He stood there, motioning to the projections, but the audience focused on David. Adrenaline surged through Marcus. He began to sweat again, feeling the pressure of failure wrap around his throat like a noose. Another moment danced away from him. What if this was the decisive moment of his fall? As David concluded, the excitement was palpable. Imagine what we could do together, if we embraced diversity rather than repress it. He stepped forward, challenging Marcus with a gaze that said it all. The reign was not his to claim. The crowd roared in approval, leaving Marcus teetering on the edge of ruin. He had to strike back. But how? What did he have left? David leaned slightly into the audience, a conqueror among them. Marcus felt the darkness of panic. Tomorrow, everything would ride on how he wielded the last ray of hope. With one bold step, he approached David. What's your next move? The question hung between them, charged with anticipation. The entirety of their futures now balanced on that precipice. As he stepped back, the air crackled with restless energy, leaving the audience poised on the brink of revelation. What would be the true cost of this battle? Only time could reveal the unnatural depths they had yet to explore. Marcus's heart raced as he stepped back, uncertainty clawing at him. The spotlight flickered, catching the subtle battle raging in his eyes. David, that confident adversary, stood firm, his brow slightly furrowed, the embodiment of calm determination. How had this janitor turned visionary captivated the audience so completely? The whispers intensified, a wave of hope shimmering through the crowd as they eagerly awaited Marcus's next move. He felt their eyes piercing through him, each gaze a reminder of his precarious position. Taking a deep breath, he summoned the courage to challenge David's momentum. Vision without discipline is chaos. He shouted, the words leaving his mouth like a desperate plea. We cannot build on dreamscapes, David. Tell me, what infrastructures will support such lofty concepts? Show me a plan, show me action. The audience murmured, some nodding, but Marcus could see the tide was shifting. A spark of realization flickered in their eyes. David, unfazed, held up a hand, commanding the crowd's attention with an air of authority. Action begins with belief, Marcus. David's voice was steady, cutting through the tension like a sharp blade. Imagine a world where barriers are mere pathways to innovation. I invite you all to believe beyond limits. Something snapped within Marcus. This wasn't just about an argument or a presentation. It was a battle for the future. The crowd was hungry, and they were starving for something new, fresh, daring. He needed to disrupt the flow, a strategy that could shift their focus back to him. Let's talk numbers, then, Marcus countered. Let's dissect your grand vision in terms of profit. How does your approach add tangible value? Can you do better than what I've built? A ripple of confusion washed over the audience. Numbers were real, they translated to power. But David, ever the strategist, smiled knowingly. I invite you to consider the stories behind those numbers, Marcus. The people who lack the opportunities we take for granted. Let me show you their voices. Before Marcus could react, David employed the projector again. Faces flashed on the screen, each image a narrative brimming with passion and potential. Workers turned creators, students morphing into pioneers, all thriving outside the corporate mold. The energy surged once more through the audience, an electric current of inspiration surging toward David. Chills raced down Marcus's spine. This wasn't just presentation, this was a revolt, a revolution. Yet amid the chaos, he felt a small, rebellious flicker ignite within him. He couldn't let the moment dissolve into David's vision alone. There had to be a twist, and it had to come from him. "Let us explore this concept of yours, David," Marcus proposed, stepping forward with renewed vigor. "Hypothetically speaking, what would it take to merge our visions? What if we collaborated? Could that unite innovation and structure successfully?" Eyes widened in shock across the room. Was he really extending an olive branch to his opponent? There was a brief silence, the air thick with anticipation, before David's gaze softened. "That would be a start," he replied cautiously. "But real change requires more than just words on paper. It demands a dismantling of everything we traditionally considered secure." The audience leaned closer, the pulsating tension palpable. Marcus felt the weight of their expectation. He had come too far to retreat now. "And what will that dismantling look like? Will it involve risks? Do you realize the backlash that could follow?" His voice trembled slightly, uncertainty creeping into his tone. David smirked, a hint of challenge dancing behind his eyes. "It may also lead to creating a legacy that champions not just profits, but purpose." The stakes soared higher. Marcus's mind raced as he processed the implications. Could merging their two worlds bring the balance both had yearned for? Or would it ignite a confrontation that threatened to splinter them all? In a heartbeat, everything teetered on a knife's edge. What are we willing to sacrifice to forge this future? Marcus's words hung in the air, stomachs tightening at the dilemma. The audience remained breathless, waiting for the answer that would either secure their thrilling ascent or plunge them into chaos. What sacrifice, indeed? That question loomed large, ready to unveil everything they believed in. The silence thickened like fog, ominous and unyielding. As the echo of Marcus's words faded, a heartbeat of silence enveloped the room. The audience could sense the tension crackling. It was as if the air itself held its breath in anticipation. David, unfazed by the challenge, shook his head slightly. He leaned into the microphone, voice low, steady. "The sacrifice, Marcus, is our complacency." Each syllable was sharp, slicing through the doubt. "It's our fear of the unknown." The crowd stirred with murmurs of agreement and disbelief. Hope painted their faces as they pondered the shift in their world. Just then, a rustle at the back of the auditorium sent a ripple of curiosity through the gathering. A door swung open, and in walked a figure clad in a rumpled suit, his eyes wild with determination. Marcus recognized the man instantly. Eli, an old friend turned rival. Eli had always been a wild card, and his sudden arrival felt like a match struck in a darkened room. His gaze darted past Marcus, landing squarely on David. "You're all talking about future risks, but what about present threats?" His voice boomed across the room, commanding immediate respect. "What if we make a move that could destroy all we've built, leaving us vulnerable to those who don't buy into either of your grand visions?" The atmosphere shifted, tension morphing into an electric charge. Eli wasn't just an intruder, he was a force of chaos, and everyone could feel it. David raised an eyebrow, intrigued by the unexpected twist. "You believe risking everything is safer than risking nothing at all? The greatest innovations often come amid chaos." Eli stepped closer, his intensity palpable. "No, David. I believe that chaos is the reason why half of our rivals will want to sabotage what we're attempting. They'll see a crack, and they will exploit it. Are we ready to battle our own shadows?" The audience gasped collectively, their faces twisting in shock. The echoes of Eli's words formed a deafening chorus. Who could potentially be lurking in the shadows? "I don't doubt the future was built on tearing down barriers," Eli continued, voice firm. But what if the barriers are not the only thing we need to worry about? What if our very foundations are shaky? That is the sacrifice we need to consider. The air thickened with uncertainty as Marcus's heart raced again, this time with vulnerability. The walls he and David were trying to break down seemed to be widening. A few audience members exchanged uneasy glances, simmering doubts creeping into their minds. The concept of collaboration suddenly felt more like a dangerous gamble. Fear can't guide our choices, David shot back, his resolve unwavering. When you run from fear, you miss out on opportunities. We have to define our legacies. Together. Eli scoffed, eyes glimmering with mischief. This isn't just about legacy. It's about survival. The crowd wavered as the tension reached its apex. The stage felt like a battleground with David and Eli poised directly across from one another, a standoff teetering between innovative collaboration and destructive betrayal. "What's your plan, Marcus?" Eli's probing gaze found him again, igniting a flicker of panic in his chest. "Are you going to stand with the visionary or with reason?" The question rang loud, hanging in the air like a fog that wouldn't lift. Marcus sensed the spotlight shifting back to him, decisions pressing heavily on his shoulders. It was a plunge into uncharted waters, risking everything he held dear, and yet, was there another path? Dread coiled in his stomach. He began, hesitating as possibilities raced through his mind. Choices, alliances, friendships all on the brink, but before he could formulate the words, a shrill alarm pierced the room, cutting through the charged atmosphere like a knife. Panic burst forth as the audience turned toward the source, a reminder that the world outside was just as chaotic as the one they had built their dreams upon. The next moment would define everything, challenge every commitment. "Get down!" Someone screamed from the back, and the lights flickered ominously. What calamity was about to unfold? In their midst? As every gaze shifted toward the exits, Marcus realized the true test was about to begin. Would fear shatter their flickering hope, or would it ignite a daring resilience? The crowd held its breath on the brink of disaster, and unaware of the revelation lurking just around the corner. The palpable tension in the auditorium collided with the shrill wail of the alarm, each pulse of sound creating a wave of panic. David's brow furrowed, and he took a step toward the edge of the stage, his voice rising above the din. "Stay calm. We need to assess the situation," but his words were drowned out by a crashing noise, the sound of a door being flung open with such force that it reverberated through the crowd. An unsettling chill swept through the room, as if the very air around them had shifted, steeped in dread. Eli, still close to Marcus, turned sharply, a glimmer of fear piercing his earlier bravado. "What was that?" he asked, his voice barely loud enough to be heard over the chaos. The eyes of the audience flitted nervously between him and Marcus, seeking leadership, clarity amidst confusion. Just then, a frantic figure burst through the entrance, breathless and wide-eyed. It was Janice, the event coordinator, panic etched on her face. "There's been an incident. Possible armed intruders." Her words sliced through the crowd, triggering gasps and cries, amplifying the already charged atmosphere. A deep, gnawing anxiety twisted in Marcus's stomach. This was not how it was supposed to be. This was supposed to be a day of breakthroughs, a celebration of hope. Instead, it had devolved into something monstrous. "Get everyone back," David commanded, his voice carrying authority even as his own hands trembled slightly. "We need a plan." Audience members looked at each other, confusion clouding their faces, but the instinct to survive ignited a new energy. Furtive glances darted to the exits. This wasn't just a debate anymore, it was a battle for safety, a moment that threatened their very existence. Eli stepped back, glancing toward the darkened corners of the auditorium. "We can't wait. If they're really here, we need to barricade ourselves." His thoughts raced, laced with adrenaline as the crowd surged toward the back of the room, fear bubbling to the surface. Marcus could feel the collective heartbeat of the audience feed into his own. The stakes had changed, and his indecision hung in the air like a weight. No. If we panic, we'll only make this worse. But his voice faded as another crash echoed through the corridor. The crowd recoiled, gasping, and their fear morphed into a chaotic rush toward the far side of the stage, where shadows now danced menacingly in the flickering light. In the midst of it all, David grasped Marcus's arm with a firm grip. We need to unite them. If we're going to fight this together, we have to stand strong. Right now. His eyes locked onto Marcus's, piercing with a mix of urgency and hope. Together, Marcus repeated, his heart pounding erratically. It wasn't just a risky leap off a cliff, it was a desperate climb to a still unfurling future. Yet before they could rally the crowd, another figure emerged from the shadow, a lone figure in a sleek black mask, half of his face obscured. Silence fell, a stunned quietude that draped over the audience. Listen closely, the masked figure declared, voice booming, seemingly unbothered by the chaos. I'm not here to harm you. I'm here to deliver a message. Those chilling words sunk into the crowd. What kind of message could he possibly bring amidst this storm? Could they really trust him after all this? Marcus felt the sharpness of fear and curiosity tear at him. Trust felt like an ungainly beast. What do you want? He shouted, attempting to regain control. The masked figure's eyes glinted, a smirk danced on his lips. You'll find out soon enough. As panic loomed just beneath the surface, a thunder rumbled from behind the walls, shaking the very foundation of their reality. They were about to discover the truth, and who could anticipate how it would shift their understanding of everything they thought they knew? The seconds ticked by, each one dragging them closer to the edge of revelation. Would they join hands amid the turmoil, or would their own shadows swallow them whole? With questions hanging thick in the air, each heartbeat felt sharper than the last, ready to sever their fragile connection to hope. The masked figure took a step forward, and a collective intake of breath swept through the audience. The silence stretched, blending with the relentless blaring of the alarm. David's jaw tightened. He knew they needed to take action, but this moment felt suspended in a bubble of confusion and fear. Who are you? David demanded, forcing his voice to remain steady. What do you mean, a message? The masked intruder paused, tilting his head slightly as if savoring the moment. All in good time, he said cryptically, voice smooth and unyielding. But know this, today is not about fear. It's about awakening. You are part of something larger than yourselves. Eli exchanged frantic glances with Marcus, anxiety flickering in their eyes. There was a shift in the crowd, a mix of fear and curiosity began to swirl, taking hold. The sensation was palpable, drawing some unwillingly closer to the figure while others instinctively stepped back, hearts racing. A thunderous bang erupted once again from the hallway, more aggressive this time, rattling the auditorium's very bones. It echoed through the vast room, a reminder of the chaos that lay just outside their safe haven. Stay near the exits. Marcus yelled, trying to assert control over the chaos. People scattered like leaves in the wind, some huddling together while others pressed against the walls. Listen. David barked over the panicked whispers, if we stay calm and work together, we'll find a way out. We can't let this enough, interrupted the masked figure. What you assume is a threat is only the beginning of a transformation. You, all of you, have a role to play. A murmur rippled through the crowd. Marcus narrowed his eyes, trying to gauge the intention behind those words. Transformation? What did that even mean in this moment? The masked figure continued, in times of strife, the truth will always find a way to make itself known. Suddenly, the emergency lights flickered for a moment, illuminating the face of the figure. Just for a split second. The hint of familiarity, was it someone he knew? The fleeting image shattered as the lights faded again into darkness, plunging them into shadows once more. Panic surged like a tidal wave, someone screamed. It shot through the crowd, a raw, primal sound that sent a jolt through Marcus's spine. Stay together. Marcus shouted again, feeling the weight of the moment crash down on him. The crowd was teetering on the edge of chaos, but he couldn't let it break. We can't let fear control us. But what are we supposed to do? Eli shouted back, his voice rising in desperation. How do we fight our way out of this? With a sudden movement, the masked figure raised a hand. Fighting isn't the answer. You only need to listen. In that moment, a piercing shriek echoed from deeper within the auditorium. It wasn't just a cry, it felt like a warning. Before Marcus could process what it meant, a thump resonated from the back of the room. An ominous presence seemed to materialize within the darkness. The crowd jolted, gasping in unison. "Who's there?" David called, his voice cracking with unease. The masked intruder stepped aside, almost expectantly, as light flickered back to life, revealing an unmistakable sight that churned the stomachs of those in attendance. Another figure emerged, silhouetted at the doorway, something dark glimmering in their hand. "This," the masked figure announced, "is where your reality will change forever." The air turned electric, dread thick as fog, as Marcus's heart raced. This intrusion was spiraling out of control, and just like that, the moment of truth hung before them like a guillotine blade, ready to drop. What awaited them behind that door? Would they rise to face it, or would they crumble beneath its weight? Desperation gnawed at him, and the unthinkable possibilities twisted in his mind, pushing his resolve to its limit as he braced himself for what was coming next. The crowd was frozen, eyes glued to the door as the second figure took a hesitant step into the harsh light. Gasps erupted, faces twisted in terror and suspicion. The figure emerged fully, revealing a woman in a dark suit, her face pale as a sheet. She raised the object in her hand, a sharp knife that glinted ominously, and the atmosphere thickened with palpable dread. "Stay back!" Someone screamed, but the words barely pierced the high-voltage tension. All David could feel was an icy grip on his heart. "Who are you?" he managed, his voice a trembling echo of his earlier bravado. The woman continued forward, her movements oddly calm, almost deliberate. "I'm here to deliver a message, just like him," she said, nodding toward the masked figure, her voice steady but laced with an unsettling intensity. "A message that must be heard, even if it cuts deep." Marcus tried to steady his shaky breath. "What message? What do you want with us?" Each question felt like a stone thrown into a dark pool of uncertainty, each creating ripples that threatened to engulf them all. The masked figure arched an eyebrow, amused. "A message of awakening, remember? But it can't happen without sacrifice." Suddenly, panic erupted again. Someone shouted, "Run!" And a wave of people surged toward the exits, shoving and jostling. The atmosphere polarized, some clung together, while others raced blindly away, driven by primal fear. Marcus caught sight of Eli, trapped in the throng, his eyes wide with terror. "Eli! Get to the front!" Marcus shouted, desperate to reach him, but it was chaos. The sound of shuffling feet, panicked voices, and the ominous wail of the alarm twisted together into a cacophony that threatened to drown out reason altogether. Without warning, the woman's voice cut through the tumult. "The truth is uncomfortable. But it's time you faced it. Your complacency has left you prisoners." A new fear surged within Marcus. What if she was right? What if they had all been blind to the realities of their lives? The idea coiled tightly in his chest. What did they owe the awakening she spoke of? How far would they have to go to break free from their chains? Then, with a sudden movement, she lunged forward, knife gleaming in the light. Time slowed as Marcus's heart thundered. He saw it glimmering, felt the air shift like the moment before a storm. Eli's scream cut through the din, a fragile cry that echoed his own in terror. "Marcus!" Eli's voice rang, raw and panicked, drawing the attention of others in the crowd. And then the unthinkable happened. Just before the knife struck, the masked figure stepped in, blocking her path with an outstretched arm. "Not yet." The transformation is not about violence, remember? Silence engulfed the auditorium, a collective breath as everyone, even Eli, momentarily paused. What do you mean? The woman's eyes flickered with a storm of emotions. It's about unity, not destruction, he replied, his voice low but forceful, captivating the crowd's attention. Only together can you understand what's truly at stake. Before anyone could react, another sound resonated from the back of the auditorium. A slow clap began, echoing against the silence. A figure, cloaked in shadows, stepped from behind the emergency lights, an amused smile on their lips. Well, the newcomer intoned, this is getting interesting. The audience's anxiety flared again, uncertainty consuming them like a wildfire. Who was this person? What game were they playing? Little did they know, the unfolding drama was only the prelude to something much darker. As the stakes rose higher, David felt the walls closing in, his instinct screaming for him to fight back against the encroaching darkness. Whatever lay ahead was a reckoning no one was ready for. Just then, Marcus caught a glimpse of a symbol tattooed on the newcomer's wrist, a snake coiling around a broken chain. The realization crashed over him like a tidal wave. What did it signify? Was there a deeper conspiracy at play? And just like that, the room erupted again, but now in a frenzied mix of shouting and panic as everything began to unravel around them. Would truth prevail, or would they suffocate in their struggle to escape the cycle of fear? The knife hovered dangerously close, waiting for someone to make the next move. Chaos consumed the auditorium as screams, shouts, and the blaring alarm created a storm of sound. The masked figure and the woman with the knife stood amid the deluge of panic, two opposing forces about to collide. As the crowd surged toward the exits, uncertainty wove itself into the fabric of the moment. Marcus's heart raced wildly, and he forced himself to focus. Stop! Marcus shouted, trying to reclaim some sense of order. We must not let fear guide us. He glanced desperately at David, who was holding his ground, eyes narrowed, aware that cohesiveness was their only path forward. David! Marcus called, help me out here. David stepped closer, nodding. Everyone, listen. We need to stand together. Fear is what they want. Remember what we discussed, the potential for unity. His voice dripped with urgency, yet there was power behind it. Some in the audience hesitated, glancing at him like he was a lighthouse in the darkness, reminding them of the hope buried beneath the chaos. Is that your plan? The masked figure spoke, his voice a smooth, dark purr. To tie yourselves together in courage while the world around you crumbles? You think your unity will shield you? Yes. David responded fiercely. It might just be the shield we need. But we cannot hide, we must rise together. The knife-wielding woman stepped forward again, her gaze narrowed. This is a time of awakening. A message that demands sacrifice. Then make your sacrifice. Marcus shot back, emboldened by David's strength. What do you think you can do to us that we haven't faced before? You think you're the first to bring chaos? We've built our lives on chaos. Eli, still struggling to get through the throng, caught Marcus's gaze and nodded, the defiance in his eyes evident. I'm with you guys. He shouted, emboldened by the emergence of unity. Just then, the masked figure turned sharply, his voice booming, you don't know the terror you invite by confronting me. Don't underestimate us, Marcus replied, the urgency in his voice resonating with the audience. We're here, standing up to you and your so-called message. You'll have to do better than fear tactics. The crowd, shaky but stirred, began to chant, unity. Unity. It echoed through the hall, surprising everyone, including the intruders. The air seemed to charge with a newfound purpose, the fear melted into resolve, and the collective breath of the room steadied as if they had finally grasped the threads of humanity that had become frayed. In an unexpected move, the masked figure halted, considering the weight of their voices. Perhaps I've underestimated you all. But remember, awakening requires more than courage, it needs action. Before Marcus could respond, the woman flung the knife to the floor, the blade clanging against the tiles. I bear the weight of awakening. Those who resist must face consequences. Then let us face them together. David shouted, stepping forward, his voice stronger than ever. But we do it not with violence, but with dialogue, with sharing stories. Let us show you there's another way, not rooted in fear, but in hope. The tension crackled, breaths being held as the audience collectively waited for the next move. The masked figure and the woman exchanged glances, weighing their choices against this unexpected turn. You think you can sway us with words? The masked figure hissed, but the glint of doubt flickered in their eyes. Yes. Marcus interjected, passion flooding him. We've heard your message and now, let us share our own. The world is different than what you presume, it has room for change and growth, empathy and understanding all the things you claim are lost. At that moment, something within the masked figure shifted. An air of uncertainty clouded their confidence. Perhaps there is potential for dialogue, the figure said hesitantly. The audience leaned in closer, a collective breath, and uncertainty hung suspended in the air like a heavy curtain. More murmurs began to arise from the crowd, echoing Marcus's words, growing ever louder. Let us not turn against one another. Let us rise to this challenge. Each person found their courage, each heartbeat a testament to resilience. The woman, wavering now, shook her head, looking at the masked figure. Are we really choosing dialogue over chaos? The figure's gaze, once intimidating, softened slightly. Perhaps we should listen, after all. But you've chosen a difficult path. It's the only path worth taking, Marcus said fiercely. And then, in an instant, the air shifted yet again. The masked figure stepped back, somewhat reluctant to relinquish their hold on the room. Then I guess we've come to an understanding, they said, the steel in their voice replaced with uncertainty. But know that sacrifice will always be a part of growth. The crowd erupted into cheers, a surge of triumph pulsating through everyone as the shadows began to recede. Marcus glanced at David, a spark igniting between them. The unity they had forged in this terrifying moment held an undeniable power against fear. Together, they would shape a new future. We'll guide the change. No longer prisoners of our fears. Cheers erupted, a wild sound that seemed to drown out the alarms, the fear. The crowd's chants felt electric, each voice reverberating against the walls a symphony of hope. And behind it all, the masked figure and the woman stepped back, leaving the door open for transformation. The battle had shifted, a victory was upon them in the midst of chaos. The ember of unity had sparked an awakening far more profound than chaos ever could. As David and Marcus stood together, uncertainty hung in the air, but so did hope, woven into the very fabric of their reality. They had faced the storm, and together, they found their way. Now, as the voices died down and the tension ebbed, a different kind of challenge awaited them. How do you build from here? The question lingered, but for now, they were content to bask in the glow of their shared resilience. And as the applause filled the hall, no one could predict the depth of change that had just begun. Before we go, listen up. You need to subscribe now so you don't miss the next thrilling story. This is the moment to show your support. Smash that like button now to feed the algorithm and flood the comments section with your thoughts. What did you think of this wild conclusion? And don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this. It's all about spreading the word. Your support means everything. Let's keep this journey going.